So when you're outside of your job, you are the person who interviews celebrities. But when you are doing that job, you are that person as well, but the connotation changes. So it goes from like, wow, you're so cool. I know this because, I've spoken to a few NBA players and people think I'm cool and I haven't done anything that you've done to the level, but even I feel this. How do you kind of balance those both hats where it's like one place you're on top of the world and the other place it's like, you're kind of like there to do a job almost.
That's a really good question to start, man.
Bringing the
Yeah,
heat.
yeah. I would say I'm kind of the same person 24/7, just to different like levels of energy. My career requires me to kind of give like 110%, sometimes as high as like 120%. And that can feel like a lot on a lethargic day. Like if I'm operating at 70% and I gotta dial it up to 120, I'm really gonna feel that extra level. But to kind of answer your question of like, who am I on camera versus off camera, there is definitely like a balance that has to be had with like understanding when to take a step back and understanding that you're not going to always feel how you feel when like the lights are on. And I felt this way when I was at Syracuse too. I felt so at home at like the Citrus TV anchor desk and stuff like that. And when you step back and you just go back to your like quieter life, even if your life isn't quiet, at the end of the day, we all go to bed in silence. We all come home to either an empty house or a quiet house, depending on what time we finish our work days. And you just got to learn how to live with that balance and not get like so caught up in the idea of always being in go, go, go mode. Because as much as the Syracuse Newhouse mantra is work, work, work and hustle as hard as you can. It's not healthy to be on like that 24/7. So knowing when to embrace the downtime, I think helps tremendously. I don't fully know if that answered your question, but I feel like I kind of touched on some aspects of it.
No, it does. And before I continue, Liam is a Syracuse grad, but as
Class of 22, baby.
class of
Go
22,
Orange.
I had Gil Gross, class of 21 on the pod a couple weeks ago. One of very few Syracuse grads, so Liam knows that he's special for it. I've only had three or four, and we're almost done like 20 episodes. But I digress. You did answer the question, because I think a lot of times we have a different expectation for ourselves than what actually happens a lot of times. And when you're a performer, and you are a performer when you're on air, you're presenting something, it's hard to kind of get caught up in what reality isn't.
Yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying there, and I do agree. It's like any type of broadcast in general is a performance, right? Because you're using a voice that you don't use in everyday speak. You're using a lexicon that you're not going to use with your friends, so to speak. So yeah, there's definitely a way to navigate it and a way to kind of develop your on-screen personality without it being so different from who you are personally, and just knowing how to get into that mode and not need to have to like flip a switch between two different people, just kind of being like for me, for example, like this morning I did my whole morning. I actually wasn't on camera today, so this is kind of a bad example. But on a day where like Comic Con a couple weeks ago, I had 7 interviews that day, and I was moderating a panel. And I knew the only way to get to where I needed to be presentation wise, like vocally, energy level, is to start my day with some calm, which is going to the gym, having a workout, phone off, notifications on do not disturb, listen to some good music, do like a cold plunge and sauna, and just have that kind of slow crescendo into where I need to be in order for me to work on screen. So like, I never like the idea of like flipping a switch on and off between being on air and off air. It's like a gradual like build up to getting ready for that level, if
Well,
that makes sense.
it's like a lifestyle, you're saying.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I built my lifestyle around my career, not vice versa.
I want to go back to what you're talking about, like, well, you always have to be the same person on and off camera. Is that harder though when you're interviewing celebrities? I mean, not just celebrities, but actors who are so tactical in their behaviors and they know when you're BSing, right? We were talking about this a couple weeks ago, but you were talking about how like, hey, if I'm not as prepared as I want to be for an interview, it's not like I'm interviewing someone on the street and they don't know it. Like you have to be, you can't BS the BS masters.
Yeah, yeah. When you put it like that, it's really true because it's like when your occupation is acting for a living, you can tell when people are not being their fully authentic selves. And so for that reason, I have found, and anytime I go into a junket or a red carpet, and for those who are listening who don't know it, a junket is just like a series of interviews that happen during a day for a particular TV show or movie. Anytime I'm going into one of those where it's a property that I'm not a huge expert on, like a huge blind spot I have is Star Trek, for example. And I interviewed two different Star Trek casts at Comic Con a couple of weeks ago. And rather than like memorize a script of questions that were helped formulated by a couple of my colleagues who write about Star Trek at Screen Rant, shout out John O. He's one of the ones who really helped me with those questions. I just call it out. I'm just like, I don't say on a hot mic that I'm not an expert, but I'm like, this question comes from my colleague John, who's a massive fan of the franchise. And sure, it's my responsibility to deliver it in a way that is audible and legible for the ears, so to speak. But by doing something like that, I'm not giving this illusion that this very eloquently written question is something that came from my mind, because I don't like to fake any of that stuff. I pride myself on being authentic. My most successful interviews have been the ones where my passion for film and the process of making film and casting and cinematography and scores and soundtracks and all that stuff, when that stuff shines through, it's because it's coming from the heart. It's nothing that I like scripted beforehand. And so, yeah, on that note, I double down on it when I feel it authentically. And when I know I have a job to do, I don't try to fake anything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's kind of signaling something to people that can have different connotations. So it's like to the viewer, you saying this is from my producer may not mean anything. To you, it gives you this feeling that you're being authentic. And then to the person you're interviewing, it gives kind of a fusion of both potentially.
Yeah, yeah, I think that is ultimately the goal, I would say. And I think I just never want to take credit for anyone else's work at the end of the day. As anyone who does broadcast knows, it takes a village. It's something I have said since I did Citrus TV at Syracuse years ago,
Syracuse
whenever we were,
student TV
yeah.
station, just for everyone.
What's up?
I said Syracuse's student TV station, just for everyone.
Yes, yeah, I need to start clarifying anytime I use Syracuseisms because I recognize your audience might not all be Syracuse people, but yeah, yeah, Syracuse had a Citrus TV station which was student run media, and at the end of our broadcasts, I would always, when we do our like little rundown meeting at the end and say what worked and what didn't work, and it basically, to paint a mental picture here, you have your two anchors at the desk. So I was one of the anchors, and I was sitting almost like to give like a visual hierarchy. The anchor is like almost on a throne, right? Like it's the whole crew is built around them and they're at the center, but they're not even the ones talking. It's typically the producer who's recapping the whole show. And then it's like there would be this moment where they hand the dialogue off to myself and a co-anchor and be like, how did you guys feel? What worked well for you? What didn't? And I never wanted to be the person who is like, oh, you needed to do your job better. You needed to do this. You needed to do that. I wanted to be like, listen, here's where I messed up. Here's where you guys all did great things. Here's where we can all improve together. And more than anything that I did right on camera, I am standing on the shoulders of everything that you did right behind the scenes. And I would always say it takes a village. Whether you were just holding a camera, and the cameras at the station were like on tripods, so not physically holding it, but just holding it in place, or whether you were cutting B-roll in the production room, whatever it may be, there's no job too small. Everything is super crucial, and that has carried on to my professional career. Whether it be people helping me with questions, whether it be my editors cutting together video, whether it just be my bosses giving me the opportunity to do these interviews. That's one thing I want to emphasize too. Holden mentioned all those great names I got to speak to earlier this year. I'd like to think that my skill set has earned me the spot in that room, but never once in my career has a PR rep or a studio come to me directly and said, we want Liam to do it. We don't care what publication he's working for. I am at the mercy of my employer. And so Screen Rant, my bosses here are the ones who trust me with doing these big interviews, but these are interviews for Screen Rant. So yeah, like I said, whether it be an editor, a colleague, a writer, a producer, or my bosses who are the ones literally just looping me in on the email and getting me into the room, those are the ones who make the magic happen. And I'm just the one trusted with, swinging the bat at the plate, so to speak.
What does it mean to you that you're 25 years old and bosses at multi-million dollar companies who are interviewing celebrities day in and day out say, we want Liam Crowley to be doing it. We want you to be doing this.
Damn, Holden, you're getting me emotional out here. You're getting me emotional today. It means the world. I This time last year, I was very lost in my career. Um, and that feeling of being lost is not lost on me. I wear my heart on my sleeve every day. I wake up very grateful every day to have the career that I have. And all I've ever wanted was just a chance, one chance to prove that I can do what I say I'm capable of. And to have that chance on a weekly, sometimes daily basis now is I don't have the words to explain it. It's everything I've ever asked for in my career. And it's not lost on me that it's happening at the age that it is. I feel very young, and not just because I am young for my profession. I remember when I turned 25 this past July, I my friends would joke and be like, "Oh, happy birthday, Unc! Happy birthday! Like, one more year on the parents' health insurance, and then you're really screwed." And I was like, what's funny? I feel younger at 25 than I did turning 24 and 23 because both of those previous ages I celebrated in the same spot I was the year prior. Nothing had changed around me. I was writing articles from my mom's basement, making the same salary with the same group of friends. There's nothing wrong with that per se, but we as human beings crave growth. We crave evolving both internally and externally. And when I looked back on 25 compared to 24, I was in a new city. I was working for a new employer. I had new career opportunities. I still have my great group of friends from home, but I have even more friends here in New York City from all different backgrounds, whether that be different backgrounds of careers. I've never had so many friends in the entertainment world. Like it's such a blessing. Like I'm Holden, I'm sure you feel this, getting to talk with people that have the same like passions that you do, but the specific passions. Sure, there are a lot of people who are fans of sports and movies, but how many people are specifically fans of the press conferences that happen at the NBA draft? How many people are specifically fans of the box office reports after an opening weekend of a couple big blockbusters? Like to have people like that in my life means a lot. So the original question about how much does that trust mean to me, it means the world, and I do not take a single second of it for granted.